Welcome to my show. I am with a guest here. His name is Jonathan Steele. Jonathan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, sir. Um, Firstly, I want to go to your background. You are a top family law attorney. You are a custodian. You are into cybersecurity, digital privacy, and you also have some expert insights when it comes to divorce. And you're recognized by super a lot of lawyers. I would like to ask, what made you choose, this type of journey? Can you tell us the struggle, challenge, and success, and how you are doing currently now, sir?
Yeah, I sort of landed in family law. It wasn't necessarily a choice. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I started as a law clerk at the age of 16, and worked summers through high school. I worked summers through. I became a law clerk at the age of 16, clerking for a divorce lawyer in Chicago, and I clerked all throughout the summers while I was in high school. I clerked throughout summers as a college student, and then I clerked for the same lawyer all throughout law school. And upon admission to the bar, I just became an associate for him, and now I'm a partner at the same firm. And so it was sort of uh, fallen into is this particular field of law.
All right, thank you so much, sir. And I'm very glad with this your background. And I would like to go to signs. What are the key signs? What are the signs that you can say someone can see, maybe very early, that he or she is experiencing violence, sir?
I think, one of the early indicators that somebody is maybe a victim of domestic violence is withdrawal from, their customary circles. So, not responding, not making plans with family members that you would customarily have plans with, the same for your friends. Um, and some of that's out of shame and embarrassment that, if it certainly to the extent you are showing signs of physical abuse, like you have bruising on your face, maybe you're going to be ashamed to be around your friends and family. I would say that's a pretty good sign of that. Um, it's less observable from the outside, but to the extent somebody is a victim of domestic violence, they might be losing sleep, they might be losing weight, they might be conversely gaining weight. It can certainly affect eating patterns, it can affect sleeping patterns, it can affect your self confidence, the way you portray yourself to your coworkers, to your family, to your friends, and it, as I mentioned, it normally presents in sort of a withdrawal from your customary social circles.
All right, thank you so much, sir. And I want to go to the point of protection order. Like when they say protection order, can you please tell us what protection order means and how do you think it works?
Yeah, there's a couple different forms that a protective order can take. One of them is, at least in Illinois, an order of protection, and that requires there to be a domestic relationship between the parties. So that could be husband and wife, it could be boyfriend and girlfriend, it could even be roommates, family members. And then there's a what's called a stalking no contact order that provides similar relief for similar behavior, but doesn't require the domestic relationship between the parties. And instead, it requires just two or more incidents of stalking. And they both follow a similar track. They're procedurally pretty similar. They offer the same sort of relief, which is, on the day you go in to present your petition, you're normally by yourself. It's just you and the judge, or you and your lawyer and the judge. You tell the judge your story. The judge reads your petition and your affidavit and decides, are you in danger? Are you at risk of abuse? And if so, the judge will give you what's called an emergency order protection or an emergency stalking no contact order. Those normally last between 14 and 21 days. And during that time, you then have to have the respondent served with your petition and the order. And then the clock starts ticking on their time to get an attorney to represent them and their ability to come in and tell their side of the story. And then when that finally happens, and there could be an interim order extending it in the meantime, but when the stories are both heard, it's called a plenary hearing. And at the end of that, the judge can say one of two things: either you didn't demonstrate abuse, or you're not at risk of further abuse, and so your petition would be denied, or you have been the victim of abuse and you are in need of protection. And so then, as opposed to a 21-day or 30-day order, they would give you an order that lasts up to 2 years that can then be extended as needed um, down the road.
All right, thank you so much, sir. I know you explained the terms of, getting the lawyer, getting the explanation, but I would just like to know if there is a way or maybe a special way someone apply for that protection order, sir.
Uh, I guess what you're asking is, how do you file the petition itself? Um, and that varies depending on what jurisdiction you're in. Nowadays, most courts have moved to e-filing, so you can fill out the petition on your clerk website. Um, it's a bunch of check boxes. You're filling in information about your contact information, information about the respondent. Sometimes, depending on the facts, you have the ability to omit your address if disclosing it would put you at risk of further abuse. And then you file it, and normally the same day you file it or you submit it online, you go see the judge that same day. And where you really have the opportunity to tell your story is normally in an affidavit that's attached to it. So you just type out, starting from a blank Word document, just what happened, why you're afraid, what the history of abuse is, what your relationship is with the respondent, and you'd give as much detail, dates, times, places as you can because you want the judge to have a full picture of what you're experiencing when they decide, are you in need of an order of protection?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. And I want to go to the point of evidence, which is one of the most important when it comes to all this law stuff. I know evidence is very important. Which type of evidence do you think is needed for someone to obtain a protection order, sir?
No, it depends on what kind of abuse you've experienced. A lot of the order of protection cases end up being what's called a he said, she said, and those are hard to win as the petitioner. And so, if you're being harassed, and it's, text messages from the respondent, emails from the respondent, bringing in copies of those text messages or emails is going to be important. Bringing in copies that show the sender address is going to be important. If you're experiencing physical abuse, having time-stamped photos of your injuries is going to be important. And if it's, for instance, if you have a black eye, you don't want to do just a zoomed in picture of your eye. You're going to want that, and then you're going to want to zoom out so that you can see your whole face and the judge can see whose black eye that is. And so, the perspective on the pictures is important. Being able to timestamp them and be able to say when they were taken is important. Video works in that same situation. Some judges look to external signs of fear to decide, are you actually afraid? And sometimes that looks like reaching out to the police. And so they'll ask you, have you filed a police report? Have you reported the abuse? And technically, the police report itself is not admissible. It's hearsay, but they want to know, yes, I filed a police report. Here's the report number. And maybe the report itself doesn't come into evidence, but the fact that you filed one does. And then, to the extent you have any live body witnesses that can come in and testify, I saw the respondent verbally abusing the petitioner or physically abusing the petitioner. That's about as good of evidence as you can get outside of like a video of the abuse occurring, because it's just a live body witness. So, things like that are helpful. Things that are not helpful is like a witness written statement, because that's not going to be admissible. So, if there's a written statement from a witness, great, but you're going to need to bring that person in and they're going to need to testify about what they've experienced.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I want to go to the point of steps when it comes to someone facing domestic violence? I don't know if there's a short way, but if there's a short way or if there is a long process to someone that is facing domestic violence should take, what are the like long process or if there is any short process to someone can take if he or she is just spotting that I'm facing a domestic violence, sir?
It's a triage thing, like when you go to the hospital. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you're safe. And so, that may involve um, relocating, going to a shelter, going to stay with friends or family, getting yourself physically out of the abusive situation that you're in. And then once you're in a safe place, then you take the next step. Do you consult with an attorney about trying to get an order of protection? Do you file a petition for an order of protection? And then you can, well, in the making sure you're safe process, I would also encourage people to look at the digital footprint that they have. Sometimes, you might have, depending on if you were like married to the respondent or if you had a long-term relationship, maybe somewhere along the way you gave them location access to your phone, or maybe you have an air tag or something that they have access to. You're going to want to check that because that kind of ability to track your location is going to put you at risk of being abused again. And so, that goes along with the first part of relocating and making sure you're safe. Um, Once you're safe, then you're going to want to take those steps of trying to get an order of protection for yourself, trying to make sure that the respondent doesn't have the ability to locate you. Because while I do always encourage people to seek protection from the courts, like an order of protection, at the end of the day, it is a piece of paper, and paper doesn't stop bullets. Paper doesn't stop knives. And so, you can have an order of protection and it gives teeth to a police officer to be able to come and arrest the respondent if they're in violation of the order of protection. But, the first and foremost thing is making sure you are safe, and, you can't really hide behind a piece of paper. So, you need to make sure that they don't know where you are, that your doors are locked, that you have maybe cameras or at your home. So it's hard to say like a short process, but it's sort of a multi-step, multi-layered thing to keep yourself safe.
All right, thank you so much, sir. It's a very tough position, and I want to go to the point of family and friends. They also play a huge role when it comes to someone experiencing something like a domestic violence. How do you think family and friend can also support or help assist someone who is experiencing domestic violence, sir?
It's hard to, as a family or a friend, to not jump right in and say, you need to leave. You need to get out of this situation. What are you doing? That comes off as judgmental. And it's hard sometimes to get out of that situation. The stakes are higher when you have children with the respondent. And so it's not as easy as I'm just going to leave, and putting additional pressure on them, like making them feel stupid for being in that relationship, isn't helpful. And so, in the least judgmental way possible, just letting them know that you're there for them, that you are supportive of them, that you'll support them in any way that is helpful to them, whether that's offering them a couch to sleep on, offering them money for a lawyer, offering to testify as a witness for them, offering to help, watch the kids while you go to court to get an order of protection, basically just making yourself available to them in a way that they find helpful, and not necessarily telling them what to do, because deep down they know what to do. Deep down they know they need to leave that relationship. They know they need to get help. So telling them that is just making them feel worse about the fact that they're not doing it. And that doesn't tend to help people. It can make the situation worse because you're making them feel bad about it.
All right, thank you so much, sir. And I want to go to the point of someone who is maybe, I'm helpless, I don't have anything to do. I want to go to the point of maybe if there is any organization that do help someone when it comes to this domestic violence, sir? Is there any organization like that, sir?
There's a lot, depending on where you live. There are domestic violence shelters that will offer you safe housing for you and your kids um, at low or no cost to keep your roof over your head in a way that's safe and in a way that you're not, perpetuating ongoing violence. There are low cost or even free attorneys, whether it's a legal aid clinic, a volunteer legal services foundation. There are a number of resources in most, if not all, jurisdictions that can offer assistance. On the low end of assistance, they may just be able to sort of from the background give you guidance and just sort of be like an advocate for you behind the scenes. And then as far as, a law firm representing you without charging you, and that can be helpful depending on your circumstances. Not everybody has the ability to go out and retain a good lawyer to get the protection that they need. So they're pretty much every step of the way. Obviously law enforcement is there to help you, but beyond that, they'll point you in the direction of how to get an order of protection. They'll point you in the direction of a lawyer to help you with that process, and then somewhere to lay your head down at night that doesn't subject you to further violence. So there are no shortage of hotlines and service centers and legal service foundations and shelters specifically dedicated to victims of domestic violence.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I want to go to abusive relationship because it's very tough when someone is in something that is called abusive relationship that is not even working at all, and they are just locked up there. They don't know what to do. I would like to ask, how do you think someone can safely leave a very, 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 very abusive relationship, sir?
It's a tough question. A lot of people feel stuck because of the fear of the unknown. They don't know, if I leave, is this going to make it worse? If I leave, will I lose my kids? If I leave, will I be able to support myself financially? And so sometimes it's a matter of seeking counsel from a lawyer to answer those questions for you, because then you don't have that fear of the unknown and this is where I'll be able to live. This is how I'll be able to support myself. This is what my parenting time will look like with my child. And so then you're making an informed decision. So I think that can be helpful as a first step, is like being knowledgeable, but even that can present logistical challenges, depending on how much control the abuser has over like your access to your phone or your computer. You have to sort of be creative in how you reach out to help. You may have to go to a library and write an email. You may have to create an email address that they don't know about. Use a friend's phone. You have to think in a way that keeps you safe, because if your abuser has access to your phone and they see you reaching out to help, that could make things worse. As far as like once you've made that decision, I know what it's going to look like when I leave. I know what to do when I leave. When and how do I leave? That's going to be dependent. It's a case by case basis. It's, as soon as you can, leave safely. You don't want to necessarily leave in the most confrontational way, which would probably be when the abuser is there in the home with you. Maybe you're going to wait until they go to work or go out for a pack of cigarettes, or your earliest opportunity when you are alone, or when you can leave safely, or when you can have someone come to pick you up and make sure you're safe and have the ability to call the police as needed.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. And I want to go to challenges. There's nothing in this life that there will not be challenges. What challenges do you think someone can face when, applying or want to, enforce this protection order, sir?
One of the challenges is going to be, I guess, it can be hard to leave when you have children. So that's going to be challenging. The kids are stuck in the middle. Do you seek relief on their behalf? Are you doing them more harm than good? So making that determination about where the kids fall in that process can be challenging. It can be challenging if um, you, as the petitioner in an order of protection, don't have access to funds and the respondent has tons of money to hire big, fancy, aggressive lawyers. They're going to make it more challenging for you. But, as I mentioned, there are legal services that can help you navigate that process. A court's not going to really allow you to be bullied in the court process, um, even by big, fancy, aggressive lawyers. But, at the end of the day, you are held to the same standards as an attorney, and you are expected to know the rules of the proceeding that you're in, and most likely you don't. And so, if you're trying to navigate the process by yourself and you're in a courtroom against a lawyer, um, you're out of your depth. They know the rules of the game. You don't know the rules of the game. And so that can certainly pose challenges to trying to win your order protection. So, trying to go at it alone is a hard thing to do when there's a lawyer on the other side.
Hmm, tough one. I would like to ask her if there is any specific advice you would like to give to the audience, probably anyone who is facing this domestic violence, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to, as I mentioned earlier, the digital tracking stuff is pretty often overlooked. A lot of the times that's because the lawyers that guide people in the process, they themselves aren't really familiar with how to counsel clients about how to unplug that access. And it's overlooked and it can perpetuate further violence. If you flee, you get your restraining order, but they have the ability to track you. That can certainly lead to more stalking. And so trying to navigate disconnecting that can be challenging, but there are resources about how to do it. Nowadays I'm seeing more and more stalking by way of an air tag. Maybe the respondent has put an air tag in the car of the petitioner or in one of their purses or in their clothes or in their home, and that the signs of that are somehow they always know where I am, somehow they always show up where I am, and how do they know where I am? And nowadays, Apple has made it better. If you have an air tag that's not yours, that's moving along with you, it'll beep. It'll tell you there's an air tag that's not registered to you that's traveling with you. Um, and that helps. It's not foolproof, but it does help. And there's also a feature that Apple has released maybe over a year ago at this point on iPhones called Safety Check, and it's intended primarily for victims of domestic violence. And what it does is it just walks you through all the different permissions that you've given to various people over the years that you may not have it remembered giving access to. And so it'll say, you shared your location with this person, you shared a photo album with this person, you shared, camera access with this app or this person, and it'll walk you through the process of removing that access if you no longer want to have that. And it doesn't do anything that you couldn't otherwise do on your own, but it walks you through the process in a user-friendly way. And if you're not, clear-headed and trying to navigate that, it makes it much easier. So I think it's important to just be mindful of, does my abuser have access to like the Nest cams at my house that still, do they have access to my location? Do they have the ability to view my photos, my text messages, my emails? And unplug as much of that as possible, because that's a remaining connection that's going to allow them to continue to perpetuate abuse.
All right. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. And lastly, there's a question I normally ask, sir. From the ancestors, from the forefathers, if there is anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing would be, sir?
Hmm. That's a good question. I don't know how knowledgeable I am about the our ancestors. I think I think domestic violence has been a problem since going all the way back. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Um, we put litigation, we put protections, we put procedures to help people. And I think we have to just keep doing more of that. I think we have to keep offering more resources to victims to keep them safe, and try to be cognizant of the fact that there are times when those procedures are misused, but not lose sight of the fact that they are there to help people.
Hmm. Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Jonathan, I want to really appreciate you for your time and for your patience and making this meeting a successful one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.